Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. Hopefully, my voice is loud and clear, and the audio in the background is adjusted. Whoever's listening, let me know if the audio or whatever can get it enhanced. But anyways, I'll dive into the episode. For some time, and just for viewers to keep in mind, every time I give these lectures, to myself at least, I start from scratch. That means I try to explain the whole reality back, reverse engineer from what it means. I would say that specifically to me, it has been, getting close to a decade where I've embarked on this project of these 10,000 talks. And as the years have gone by, just like, a person discovers a new world, I would say I discovered a new project in the midst of the project I was trying to complete. So I started giving out 10,000 talks, and in the middle, I questions about where the content is arising from kind of came to me, right? We're living in a world right now where, on YouTube, I was seeing videos on content creation, and that part of me, that kind of made me upset because the content is everywhere. Really, what human beings are doing is that they are found in a world. The world is filled with stuff, with content, and their individualism, their ethnocentrism is kind of like the organizer of the content in their environment. So my attention went from a personal project in my inner realms, in my own universe, to this recognition of what would a collective global project look like. I thought about where systems are leading. I would say since my childhood I've been fascinated by systems because they always seem to me to be double-sided. I mean, really anything I see is double-sided. One side is how my eyes have opened to it. The other is how the reality actually is. The way our psychology works is that there's an energetic effort to overlay reality through abstraction. So it's as if, reality is like this one real event happening, and each person, starting from their own world, eyes, and memory, is in some sense placing abstract events upon the real event to comprehend the actual nature of the real event. The task of knowledge seems to be this. The task of knowledge seems to be, in some sense, we are adding things to in order for something to mean something. It's as if people want to know more, but know more about what reality is like just here. The realm is here. Now, if we put an additional effort to know something that is already here, we are adding or overlaying it with a dimension, right? And the ancient mystics and yogis understood this. And in some sense, even you could say Taoist findings, it comes to the conclusion of action through inaction. If somebody wants to experientially and directly understand what this, let's say for now, existence of life is, it is actually by imposing less abstract dimensions, and as you are being simply, you get a simple access to what is being. But we human beings develop language, and to me, even though language seems like a world inside a world, there is a purpose to it. You know, I'm like, okay, creatures were biting each other in the jungle and now they're having arguments, right? It seems as if some part of the intelligence that we are decided it didn't need to be an animal anymore. You see, evolutionary wise, we are animals. Like, anybody could just put their palms on the ground and kind of get a sense, you know, of the animal that we are. But this animal has access to something that is not animalistic. Just the fact that we have ideas such as love, care, decency, you know, in a temporary world, in a realm where there's temporary creatures, why should there be love, right? And let me tell you why there is love. Love exists not just as a sort of acceptance of the moment. Love exists as a guardian angel of the future. That is the power of love. That means the concept of the future and the ability of a species to be like, okay, where's everything heading? That attitude allowed us to have a sort of emotional compensation in the moment for what is to come. So our emotions think of it this way. Imagine a creature, no sense of future, you know, just, you know, instinctual past, even not a conscious past, and this creature is just roaming this world. Suddenly, it's as if on the outer realm, it's like a system imagine there's a system that has an inner realms and an outer realm, an outer function and an inner function, and this system has been just going on based on the outer function, and through the ability of the mind to envision different abstract scenarios other than the current real one the creature is in. For the first time, an inner mover of the outer kind of took place, right? So what I'm trying to say is that the creature was living in one world, and through the discovery of the mind and have an ability to consider the future, another world began influencing the decisions of, for now I would call, a singularian entity. In my own lexicon, words I've in some sense coined and connected to concepts, I have this view pretty much. This is my whole philosophical context of reality, and I'm very proud of discovering this or shaping it in this way. It's called the ring of the absent heaven, and if somebody was like Mr.Within, how can everything that's here happen, or what are the ways it can happen? I would pretty much be like, okay, 0, 1, 2, infinity. That means it's like the number 0 represents the void, the absence, the space, and pretty much how the concept of nothing is like the resolution of something first. I call people who feel that the initial context of reality is void, voidists. I call people who feel the initial value of reality is singular, the singularians. I call people who feel the initial value of reality is dualistic, dualitarians. And something I think I called it for infinity, those people who feel it's infinite, infinitists, you know. It's like they ask someone, what do you believe, man? And the person's like, I believe in infinity. Or like they ask you, you know, what kind of school of philosophy do you identify, or what's your religion? And the person's like, you know, I believe in infinitism, you know. And they're like, what do you mean? It's the end. The person says that there is no beginning and end. That's what infinity means. People may think infinity can have a beginning, but I'm telling you, the nature of something that doesn't end means it doesn't have limits on power, on energy. Now, what is one infinite thing that we know, right? And that's space. I would say space and the idea of change. right? That means people are gonna be like, wait a minute, well, if there was an eternal, an eternal quality in the realm, what would it be? And that's the fact that everything is changing. And the incredible thing about consciousness, that it simulates a reality where it's a changeless viewer of the change. Now, many people I've recently, I was looking at some podcasts, and it's like modern neurology seems to have the idea or the consideration that the free will is a complete illusion. And let me tell you the issue with this, right? The issue with something being here but suddenly considering that it is not here is that it begins to it stops engaging the unknown variables of the realm. Okay? So if right now I had this view that I don't exist, but somehow I'm giving a talk, it would be as if like, why am I even giving a talk? You see, the free will, it's too easy to see something as not there, right? I mean, it's like anybody could be like, it's like, that's nothing, Imagine you're an investor and somebody comes and gives you a pitch deck or something, and so you have this suddenly attitude, you're like, it's nothing, everything's nothing. It's like a nihilist investor who never invested in anything because everything was nothing. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is, I'll go back to it, that we developed an ability of foresight. The species, the creature, had an ability to be like, what's my tomorrow gonna look like? And now the ability's reached a point where we're like, okay, what's all of our tomorrows gonna look like? What is the tomorrow of our species gonna look like? And the title, when I say envision what it would be like to be in an advanced civilization, is because I feel that is the greatest strategy that a species can take in a meaningless changing world. When I say meaningless, that means any meaning that is temporary or conditional, it changes. I thought about it, that what does it mean that in front of my eyes I get to experience 2022, but behind my eyes I could envision what the future would be like, and there's an incredible proof of that based on all the science fiction writings in the world, that human beings have their attention has mingled with the future. So if in front of our eyes we get to see 2022, but behind our eyes we can envision a future where there's flying cars, interstellar cities, alien passports, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, behind our eyes we can envision, the fabric of a more advanced system. That means in front of our eyes this system, behind our eyes what this system could be. Now, I am thinking, like, okay, let's say there's a multidimensional entity that has an inner realm and an outer realm. It's stuck in a world, and it's stuck in its outer realm first. So this being has an option of choosing to identify with the outer realms, therefore just go based on how the world in front of your eyes creates meaning. But if this creature has already an access to inner realm imagery that is beyond its time, it's as if, what kind of self should we be? Should we be the self that is just using the information of the outer realms, or should we be a self that realizes how the inner realms adjusts for the inefficiency of the outer realms, and we live in accordance to that? Human beings, act like they're just material entities, but it's like what is moving the matter is an idea of themselves. what the idea of themselves is not a physical thing. We're technically, non-physical physical beings, non-physical witnessing physical movement sort of beings, for this episode, I would say, as a sort of exercise or kind of like homework for the species, I would like everybody to go in nature or somewhere where there's, nature around, and just sit for a period of 10 to 20 minutes. At minimum 10, and let's say maximum not more than an hour. A person just goes and sits somewhere, not even having a sense of, not even keeping time. You just go and sit somewhere and you close your eyes and you ask yourself, what sort of world would the most advanced version of me exist or live in? Let's say we realize that this realm is actually a multiverse, and what our imagination is our life in another dimension. Now we're trying to wonder about, okay, what would the most advanced life of ours be? People don't realize the implications of, the metaphysical context of parallel universes. The moment multidimensionality enters, our vision, it becomes the situation where it's like the attention's like, where is the original self located? That means imagine like an onion, there is let's say 10 layers to the world, concentric spheres, like 10 layers to the world. And imagine we are in the 8th layer, and we think the 8th layer is the original layer. And so imagine you have been living your life feeling that this is the original earth, the original reality, and you suddenly awaken to this nature that not only is this earth we're in not the original earth, but there are many earths. There are many ways. It's as if, think of it this way, the body is having a singular life, okay? The linguistic component, the ideological self is having a dualistic life, but the witnessing self of this is having an incredible multidimensional life, right? So what that means is your body experiences one world, your mind experiences two worlds, your soul is experiencing ad infinitum worlds, and beyond your soul, that which is the eyes of your eyes, or the eyes of the world, the eyes of the eyes of the world. Those eyes take attention into the inconceivable classroom. That means if somebody was like Mr.Within, if this world was a school, what would be the kind of levels of the school, right? And I would say like Earth would be like primary school, do you know? The heavenly abodes would be like middle school. Or let me say it this way, Earth would be like the middle school. The abodes of abstraction beyond the eyes of the physical entity. For example, in the Bhagavad Gita, there's an idea that's explained. And that idea is that if a person, let's say, does great deeds in the lifetime, let's say you choose to live as the most advanced good person possible. You try to live in a sort of advanced goodness, okay? That means people won't say my goodness, they'd say my advanced goodness, It's like, this kid is such an advanced good boy, So let's say you live meritoriously, okay, during your lifetime. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says those that their lifetime has merit, what ends up happening is their consciousness after this life, after death, goes to the moon, and in the moon they experience heavenly simulations until the credit of their good actions is finished and they come back to Earth. Okay? I don't want to get into Vedanta where they talk about, 7 levels, 7 upper worlds, 7 lower worlds, and the 7 upper worlds that are on Mount Meru. It's as if Earth is on the bottom of the mountain, and the top peak of the mountain is when you're when you're in Brahmaloka. That means Brahmaloka is where it's technically the original dimension, or this might be a strange sentence, but God is the original Earth, which is calling, a forgotten truth outside of its simulated nature, calling back forgotten truth. So I'm pretty much the idea is I'm just saying there's greater abodes. Okay, middle school is Earth, high school is let's say the heavenly abodes, and the actual, let's say, university would be that when you are being a universal being. God is another way of saying, has a creature understood its inconceivable origin? Have we realized that what has been watching us, or let me say it this way, people might, they may scold me for saying this, but I would say that it has to be said that God, it could simultaneously, the concept of the Abrahamic God could simultaneously be a metaphor for our attributeless mind. I mean, think about it. What has been watching you from the beginning of your life? Let's say there is an inconceivable God, and this inconceivable God is watching all of conception. If the human being was to honestly ask, okay, what is in this moment, about me inconceivable that is watching the conceivable? And so one discovers the unknown nature of their eyes. What we're lacking in, I would say, in academic circles and modern times is not the certainty of what we know. It is the uncertainty, which is another privilege to explore the world again, the unknown world again. Right? So we have reached that time where knowledge, its fruits are going to be, it's like we've ate too many apples and now we've reached a point where the moment we become desireless, we get to experience the desires of greater dimensions. Our mind is an invisible watcher of all that is visible in the moment. And we call it mind. Like, the most important thing to realize about mysticism is the discrimination, I would say, between what is indirectly and ideologically present and what is directly and experientially present. My experiential presence is not in language. That means no words can complete the task of explaining reality. A person can get attached to names, A person can get attached to personality, right? In this life, ever since having the idea that truth is an inconceivable origin, I have never understood why people need gurus. I've never understood that. Like, how could somebody else's mind... Like, the greatest thing that a guru can be is a mirror, right? It's like there are some pilots who just want to, pilot passengers, and there's some pilots who want to create more pilots, right? And piloting is not just in the outer realms. If you want it in the outer realms, you got to go get certified. But if you want, but piloting in the inner realms is discovering the nature of attention. Ultimately, I think an entity, just the concept of an entity, its entitlement comes from the context it originates itself in. Okay, that means if somebody has this view like we're in a bad world and you originate your sense of self from that context, right, there would be a sort of, a sort of psychological dissonance, right? Because we are so used to being concepts, but we're not used to actually knowing what the context actually is. That means I'm this person saying the concept of me is in language, but the context of my existent experience. Sorry guys, my attention drifted for a moment. As a concept, I'm in language, but the context of my being is not in language. And for me to realize this, it was very shocking. So imagine your whole life, okay? I mean, I find it was a kind of, one of those blessings and mystery. Blessings cloaked in mystery, where at some point I was like, wait a minute, every person is born, every person is obsessed with the idea of their self, and if they choose not to be obsessed with the idea of their self, their physical survival diminishes. So in some sense, if everybody in a system, if the regular crowd is in the game of self-obsession, which is the concept of at least success for now, right? That means it's as if anybody wants to be successful, they start off trying to succeed in individual dimensions, then collective dimensions. Me, strangely, as a podcaster, I was like, how much time is this going to take? So I'm like, okay, if the collective wins, maybe I can win too. Right, the idea of a win-win strategy being more foolproof, But anyways, I'm trying to lead towards this notion, right, that when we realize we are unknown beings in a known world, in a knowable world, we have to take in what we have access to. So whoever you are, if you want to play the game of, the game of enlightenment, honestly, it's like a game. The game of enlightenment starts with a self having a vision. That vision, for most people, is of freedom. I would say I'm a bit of at least I don't know, I'll say this to the audience that I'm assuming now, but I find myself that, some people seek truth for freedom. They want to be free. Some people, you can say, let's say there are people who seek, they seek truth for power, right? They want to be powerful, but that technically also falls into freedom. But I would say for me, there has been this question. I would say this might sound strange, but this question has been one of my guardian angels. One of my guardian angels of my intellect, where I am pretty much wondering, what is this? That means some people want to see truth. Some people are like, but what is truth? Right? And if you are a being that has dimensions beyond sight, then just to see truth is not enough. Imagine somebody went to this hypothetical guru and was like, hey guru, show me God. And the guru is like, sure, let me give him a call. And the guru meditates, and let's say some sort of light out of nowhere appears, and the light says, what up, I'm God, and the person's like, okay, so this guru showed me God, now what next? What after you have seen truth? That means, what is the species' post-truth strategy? For me, the question, the unknownness of reality is too significant to just consider as, you know what it is? It's like something is happening and the species doesn't know what it is, right? And we can choose to hate it, love it, but we don't know what it is. And the question comes, how can we know what there is to know? Guys, I have to be somewhere at 6, and it's 5:30, and it's only 30 minutes in. And I have a long drive. Okay, I'll just, skip to the essence of the talk. I'm trying to have people wonder about the nature of reality and suddenly notice that there's unknown qualities to it, unknown variables to their moment. One of the biggest unknown variables is what is looking out through their eyes, and because it seems to be of an inconceivable nature, we are kind of like, okay, at least if we can't know the inconceivable as an inconceivable being, right? So let's see if we can't know the inconceivable as a conceivable being, let's at least see what sort of conception we have access to. Now, in that, let's say, kinda truth is impossible, but what's next attitude? The next attitude is to play with the future. This species played with the physical presence for 4.5 billion years. All those people in the New Age community who are trying to get to the here and now, you have been in the here and now for 4.5 billion years, and through the relatively recent advantage of having a species acquiring language, through language acquisition and, let's say, memory management, the creature can now fathom a future. When I look at a bird, like, I remember I had the privilege of once seeing a bunch of sparrows in like a fountain. And those sparrows were just following the dimension of their instinct. That means to me, an animal means you are enslaved to your environment. But the human being, it's as if the hue of the sun has translated into the significance of a bigger world. That means we are multidimensional beings. Whoever you are listening, we are multidimensional beings. We have access to instinct, but our efforts require to preserve our relationship with our intuition, which is the unknown world. So in the wonder of what to do if truth is inconceivable, we try to wonder what is the most advanced conception. That means imagine the human being that wanted to know what is the most advanced idea, and it's hilarious. You know why? Because advancement is the most ultimate idea. It is the most ultimate noun and verb. To advance towards advancement, pretty much. That's the ultimate concept. I just thought about, civilization needs a makeover. it needs a sort of reset, but not a reset that is ignoring the advantages of what it has brought forth. Whoever you are, just wonder what would an advanced civilization look like, and then wonder how you would be like in it, and then wonder about what you would do in it. That means we don't want to see people trying to be normal. That's kind of like a disease. That's the disease of the species, to want to be the same in a changing world, like WTF, you know? The point of life is for new moments to perform. The species is mid-performance, and we are the performers of this generation. Pretty much I'm saying, do we live for, the lesser outer world, or do we live for the greater inner world? Anybody who their life is being defined by an ideological system, that the aim is to live in accordance to the inner realms. There was this person, I forget his name, I think it was Ibn Sina, Ali Ibn Sina, but I could be wrong. There was this scholar in Persian culture. And somebody asked him, how are you so polite? The story's from, think of it 1,000 years ago or whatnot. They asked him, how are you so polite? And he said, I learned from the rude. Anything they did, I did the opposite. And I have this attitude where I could see the same sort of algorithm implemented, where rather than us learning how to behave based on what people are doing now, we wonder about what beyond that. The word beyond is very redemptive. People think mystery is overwhelming, but it's overwhelming because of how much it can free you of what you thought should be. That's the beautiful power of mystery. It relaxes how firmly you have gripped onto life, gripped onto the solid meaning of life. One of my strategies, I'm writing a book on it. It's just starting this really big project on this idea of civilization 2.0. if we want a collective system to advance, it is unfair for the weight of that advancement to be upon one individual. Due to this, let's say, principle, we have to have a sort of, think of it this way, a new revolutionary approach to human life that starts off not limited. Anybody who feels they are weak, that's a limitation. And a limitation is an acceptance of a picture of meaning. When a person realizes they are not the pictures of their mind, even though they can act in accordance to it, a person becomes, their imagination is set free. That means the secret to, let's say, the wilderness of imagination's revelation is really how much you can be without being anything. And then being moves freely. Envision that if you had an advanced sense of being living in another dimension, how would that be like here? It's another way of saying how could we live like the future in the present that is obsessed with the past? Futurism is what's going to make humanism more important than culturalism. Now, if someone's like, okay, Mr. Within, how are you seeing an advanced civilization, which you're living in right now, if you were? I'd be like, first of all, the species would have an equal value. Just a second, guys, I'll be back. Okay, based on time frame, I see different future selves to me. There was a time where the imagery to my future self was that it was through the timeline of that if we suddenly realized human consciousness is not terrestrial. And so my mind had a sort of, for some time at least, I think this was years ago, but for some time my mind had a romance with the idea of as if the center of my consciousness consciousness is being projected from the Andromeda galaxy, right? So I saw that in the future, let's say, I don't know, I'm pretty much saying there were moments where I identified as, a celestial entity. I saw a future self that was, I'll just say it was like a celestial commander of some sorts, right? In regards to, let's say, this Earth and its time frame, if I give it 200 years, I see the era of cyber minds. I also see the era of cyber bodies. Right now, we are still engaging cyberspace. We're still building cyberspace. In the future, they're going to be living in it in ways that we can't fathom now. And cyberspace people have a fear of that it's going to be completely devoid of nature, but it could be that the most advanced AI concludes that nature's genius surpasses, inferior creativity. Inferior in the sense of its unnaturalness. I've envisioned having a comfort with the idea of an extended mind in the outer realms of today. That means if it was similar to the outer realms of today. So what does that mean? Right now I have access to only my inner realms, right? Imagine in the future 10 people could connect their inner realms and they would each have access to each other's inner realms. Right now we're like looking at the achievements of the individual mind. In the future there's going to be like selection processes for collective mindhood. It's another way of saying, like, imagine all the kind people on the planet connected their inner realms together, right? They had access to that collective server of inner realms. And imagine all the evil people did the same thing. You know what I mean? It would be like, when we talk about good or evil minds, it's like that would be a collective expressionism. It could be. These are probabilities, guys. Right now, I'm just some guy in 2022, and with let's say the rhythms of my imagination, this is what I'm envisioning. I've also envisioned, I'll say this, a future where there's these giant, I've written this in my sci-fi as well, there's these giant rectangular, what's the term? There's these like giant, building sized rectangular boxes floating in the sky. And in these boxes are human beings that their bodies are preserved in like some sort of, I called it nutrition pods in one episode, where it's as if like their body is inside like this spherical swimming pool. I don't know how to say it. It's like in a sphere of liquid, the person's hovering, right? There's something connected to their brain, and their body is being kept at a point where, like, okay, I'll say it this way. Imagine you're someone who you don't like the world that's happening right in the world you're in right now, and so you go into this pod and your mind lives a cyber version of the world, and your body is just trying to be preserved in the longest time imaginable. So I would say it in this way, that how much our minds need a body to experience a life, a body in a world to experience a life. It's like people can technically hibernate into their inner realms, right? Let's say you're a cigarette smoker and you can't quit cigarettes. You would go into one of those pods for 10 years. Your body's just becoming healthy in that pod, and in your mind you're living in the sort of live streamed version in cyberspace of the current world. That means in the future, in this future at least I'm envisioning, there's going to be WISPs, WHISP, right? And it's another way of saying there's going to be hologram people in the future. That means imagine you're walking in the street, you see an android, you're like, oh, it's the android I saw yesterday, and then you see hologram white light, or whatever color of light, people walking, holographic people, and these holographic people, their bodies are not in the real world. Their bodies are in hibernation mode in the real world, but their minds are in the world, right? That means this idea of, imagine it's like a game, and when you log in, you can log into a body and you can log into a mind, right? So imagine right now we have 8 billion living human beings who have logged into bodies, but it could be like trillions of beings that have logged into minds, and they're here and we cannot see them because they haven't logged into the body, or they haven't created an account, hilariously. If life was a video game, imagine somebody's like, hey man, don't you realize you're paying monthly to be in this video game? Anyways, guys, I'll end the episode. Thank you for listening so far. The major idea was that reality is something that we could choose to act like we know it, right? But in honesty, it's too big and beyond to know it like this. So it's as if we're getting a taste of a multidimensional world through a singular dimension. We're getting an experience of it. Now, where has it been said, right, that we shouldn't wonder about what else life could be? It's like wonder about your hidden eyes, the hidden source to sight, and the revelations of greater or future dimensions may become unhidden. It's like there's a part of our sight that it's here, whether you can say our eyes are open or closed. It's like an inner knowing is being the foundation to an outer doubt, or even an outer certainty. It's like we can't ignore how behind our eyes free will is seeing the options for it to be mobile in the outer realms and selecting. So I'm going to give a homework assignment to the future generations. Wonder about what the most efficient advanced civilization would be like, and pretty much if the whole species brainstorms on the greatest outcome, at least we will have a lot of information. You know what it is? It's like, don't try to be one step ahead. Don't try to be 2 steps ahead. Try to be as far steps as your vision goes ahead, and then whatever you find during that, let's say, endless effort, that becomes success. Wonder about the nature of your attention. Ask yourself if you deserve the most advanced state of being or not. And if the answer is yes, like this video. if the answer is yes, ask or command your mind gracefully to reveal to you its most advanced being. Because the chances are that it instantaneously will, and you will instantaneously know. In an instant, truth hides from every changing moment of the world. instantaneously. It's like eternity is like an instant of time is technically an eternal moment. Yeah. It's not an infinite moment, but an eternal moment, you know. It's like eyes open in the world, and, you know, the creature's like, no way, I'm more than I believe. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. For the advanced civilizations of the future and Civilization 2.0, the great conquest of mankind, or the great quest of mankind. The poetry of eons can come to one sentence. This is, you could say, one sentence that Mr.Within ushered into the waking world. You know, rise, mankind, rise. Because what else can we do? Thanks for listening, guys. Much blessings and namaste.